Welcome to the Insight Meditation community of Charlottesville, Virginia. You can find all of our program offerings and information about our Sangha at www.imeditation.org. We meet weekly on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, currently on the Zoom platform for meditation and a Dharma talk given by one of our teachers. We also meet daily at noon Eastern Time on Zoom for sitting practice. We hope you can join us.
So welcome everyone. I just took a deep breath. I wonder if we could all take a deep breath as we settle in here together. I see Judy stretching, maybe a stretch or a breath or both. I want to sincerely welcome you, each of you, here tonight. My name is Liz Reynolds, for those I don't know personally. And this is the Insight Meditation community of Charlottesville. We're really happy to have you here. Our evening together is going to focus on the body. The name of this evening is What the Body Says. And I'm going to start off just briefly with an introduction about pronoun usage. You might see if you toggle across my picture that I'm using she and her pronouns. At IMCC, we are working to create a more inclusive community where folks who might not always come to us can feel like they belong, like they are welcome here. Showing your pronouns is an opportunity to make folks whose pronouns might not be clear by their appearance feel welcome. So if that's something that you feel comfortable adding to your profile tonight, that'd be great. If it's not something you want to add, that's also fine. I think the more we talk about these ways of creating belonging here in our Sangha, the better. So thank you all for receiving that note, and happy to talk more about that in the future. So the title of this talk, as I mentioned earlier, is What the Body Says. The theme of our time is hopefully a joint exploration of embodiment in spiritual practice. And to help me out with this theme, this talk, and before I keep going, I was alerted that perhaps I'm not speaking loud enough. Everyone, you're okay? Will you give me a thumbs up? Okay, might have just been one person. Okay. I'm still going to try to lean closer to the screen here. So I was saying, in order to help me out with this talk, I'm calling on a dear friend. Her name is Mary Oliver. And she wrote a poem called What the Body Says. I memorized this poem several years ago, and so I'm going to be reciting it for us. And since our idea tonight is the body, I'm going to be closing my eyes most likely as I recite. I wonder what would work best for you to let this poem land in your bodies a bit more deeply. You might notice what that might be for you and choose accordingly. This is What the Body Says by Mary Oliver. I was born here, and I belong here, and I will never leave. The blue heron's gray smoke will flow over me for years, and the wind will decide all direction until I am safely and entirely something else. I am thinking of this winter morning as I sit by the fire, and the fire in its red rack keeps singing its crackling song of transformation. Of course, I wonder about the mystery that is surely up there in starry space, and how some part of me will go there at last. But I am talking now of the way the body speaks, and the wind that keeps saying, firmly, lovingly, a little while, then this body will be stone, then it will be water, then it will be air. That was Mary Oliver, What the Body Says. The themes of this poem that we'll be exploring this evening have already explored in our meditation time together as well. Interconnection of these bodies with the natural world. You might have noticed how Mary uses earth, the earth element, this body turning into stone. She mentions this body turning into water, the crackling transformation of fire. And she mentions air, the blue heron's smoke, starry space, the wind. These elements can be central to our practices, but there are so many gateways into our bodies. And my hope tonight is that we'll be exploring those jointly. Each of us has different gateways to our bodies, different perspectives on whether the body needs to be central in the spiritual practice, of course. My hope is that we'll be able to share with each other and gain some sense of where we are on this journey of embodiment and spiritual practice, whether or not that is an important concept or not. I'd like to start off with just a bit about the Buddha's teachings on the centrality of the body in spiritual practice. Some of us might have heard of the Satipatthana Sutta. It's also known as the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. Whole books have been written about this sutta. I have one of them right here. We're just going to be mentioning a snippet. The Satipatthana Sutta lays out in greater detail what this thing is. What is meditation? How do we go about doing it? There's some very practical steps. And I do think it's significant that of the four foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha chose to list the body as the first one. And not just the first one, he went into great detail about the different ways it's possible to cultivate mindfulness of the body. This practice of meditating on the elements, these four elements in particular, earth, water, fire, and air, are one of the methods that he points to in the Satipatthana Sutta. And I wonder if folks noticed the way that I led the meditation, focusing externally on these elements, and then perhaps noticing our resonance with them internally in the body. I didn't come up with that myself. That's from the Sutta. And so I'd like to read just a brief excerpt for us all, talking about that relationship between external and internal contemplation. This is from the refrain of the Satipatthana Sutta, so it repeats itself quite often. The Buddha writes, in regard to the body, he abides contemplating the body internally, or he abides contemplating the body externally, or he abides contemplating the body both internally and externally. He abides contemplating the nature of arising in the body, or he abides contemplating the nature of passing away in the body, or he abides contemplating the nature of both arising and passing away in the body. Mindfulness that there is a body is established in him. This practice of noticing externally and internally around the elements has been quite important for me in my practice. I think I could say it's been a gateway to the body for me. This last week, as I was exploring this theme for us to share together, I wanted to go a bit deeper than thinking about a mountain creek, and thinking about my own saliva or wet eyes. And so I decided to take each of these four elements and thought about qualities of a person, characteristics that could go with each one. I'm going to share some of those briefly with us all. And I wonder, as I list some of these, if we might maintain some connection to this body. There could be a felt sense of some of these qualities. So for the earth element, again, we'll start there. What does it feel like for this body to feel solid, feel stable? I thought of the quality of stubbornness. What is that feeling of stubbornness in the body? The quality of heaviness, feeling weighed down by circumstances in our lives. Grounded and supported. What is the feeling of groundedness in this body? For the water element, I thought of fluidity. I also thought of openness and connection. Once you pour water or spill water, it's hard to separate it. It connects very easily. I thought of a quality of coolness. You might think of the body being stuck under a cold shower. What is that feeling? the element of fire, I thought of heat. I also thought of quickness in the body, vibrating. The word fiery came to mind. It was a bit of an easy one. But also the feeling of being energized, being angry. What is that feeling of anger? Some people might feel it in the core here. I'm motioning to my torso, my kind of center. And lastly, this element of air. Again, we might intentionally choose to reconnect as I say some of these qualities out loud. What does it feel like in the body when we are airy or spacey? We have a sense of perhaps disconnection, blankness. Someone in the chat earlier this evening used the word floating. What does it feel like to be floating in the body? Floaty. Air is often connected to the cerebral qualities of the body. So I've shared a bit about one of my gateways to the body. The great thing about having a body is that it's ours. It's our relationship. For many of us, it might take, hopefully, a whole lifetime to get to know this body, its quirks, its differences, its preferences. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to try something a bit new. We do this often in the young adult Sangha. The premise is that we have a lot of collective wisdom here, a lot of insight we all have access to. Sometimes we need a little individual reflection time to gain access to that wisdom. So in a few minutes, I'm going to offer a prompt. We'll have about 5 minutes of individual reflection time for you to perhaps journal or let that prompt sink in with yourself in some way that works for you. We'll come back together and hopefully share some of what we found. This idea that we all have a lot of knowledge and wisdom to offer each other. So the prompt very broadly is, and I'll put this in the chat, so don't feel pressured to write it down. You can though, of course. How have I cultivated deeper connection to my body within my lifetime? I'm going to go through some examples of this that I just thought of to help prime us, and then we'll move into that individual reflection time. So before I even begin with that, though, I want to again normalize that some of us might not know the answer to this question. There might be a sense of numbness or disconnection around these inquiries. And that's really a beautiful place to start or continue. Sometimes we live years with a deep sense of disconnection from these bodies. Some other potential gateways to the body that I thought of for women could be childbirth. For some of us here tonight, aging might be a gateway to the body. For some of us here tonight, chronic pain or illness has been a gateway to the body, perhaps still is. Caring for the bodies of young children or elderly relatives might be a gateway to the body. I also want to bring in the reality that sometimes these bodies are stereotyped based on skin color. There could be a gateway to the body that comes from not having access to equal resources because of skin color. Similarly, some of us go through gender transitions in our lifetimes, which can bring us into much greater contact with our bodies. Heartbreak can be a gateway to the body. Gardening can be a gateway to the body. I want us to think expansively about this. So we'll take about 5 minutes. It'll be 8:09, we'll come back. Most folks choose to turn off their videos during this time in the Young Adult Sangha, but feel free to do what works best for you. We'll see you back here in 5. All right, everybody. Welcome back. So this is a chance to share, and I think we'll keep it on the chat. I do have a bit more to say tonight. I'm also keeping it on the chat because I'm aware that speaking in front of a group is sometimes intimidating. There can be an ease with simply typing a phrase, some words. So if there's anyone who would like to share what some of their gateways into their own body have been within their lifetime, I'm going to start off by typing a couple of my own. So my three are yoga, anxiety, heartbreak. I'll read some of the others that folks write in as well. So yes, the outdoors, playing outdoors. Nia, and food, cooking and eating, yes. Arthritis, pain, yes. Meditation, yoga, meditation that drops from the head into the heart. Beautiful. Riding a horse, Diana, yes, thank you. Several people saying yoga, great. Listening to the body's wisdom. Moving slowly, noticing sensations. Sounds of the birds, yeah. Tapping into internal feelings when confused or agitated. Space to rest. Vocal toning, leading, great. Yeah, the body helping us notice when there's clinging or aversion. Numbness, anger, swimming. Pregnancy, weather, aging. The outdoors again, walking in the woods, resting. Music, healing from injury. Yoga, qigong. Moving large rocks, yeah. Massage, acupuncture, walking meditation. Yoga again, yin yoga, body scans, massage. Thank you everyone who's written in. Being in the water, yeah, swimming. Yeah, so this kind of list is holding little ones. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, this kind of list is exactly what I was hoping we could co-create here. I wonder if we could all just take a second with this list and see its scale here. There's only 35 or so of us here, and look at the number of gateways, the number of pathways there are into the body. We're going to talk a bit more about why we need these pathways into the body, how that relates to spiritual practice. Each of those pathways that we've listed there, and are still listing, I think, Yeah, thank you. Each of these pathways that we've all gone through, journeyed through, and are still journeying with. I thought of kind of two methods of coming at this idea of embodiment. One is a more practical application. Why would I focus on my body, mindfulness of my body in my daily life? How could that be of benefit? Why would I want to do that? And then kind of an auxiliary question is, how does mindfulness of the body play such a central role in our spiritual lives? And as so often happens, I think when we approach from a practical perspective, we wind up with a spiritual perspective as well. That's what I'm going to hope for. I thought of some situations from the past week of my life in which I noticed my body, attempted to have mindfulness of the body, and how that was a benefit or perhaps a version of some kind of skillful action. One that happens often to many of us, I'm sure, is being late, getting stuck in traffic. I wonder if there's a part of us that can recollect that experience, even though we are neither late nor stuck in traffic at this exact moment. For me, I'm focused on time. I'm looking at the clock. I'm also watching traffic lights often, thinking, I hope I get through on this cycle. I'm getting upset when I don't. What is the skillfulness then of coming into the body? We might imagine that a body that feels like it's late for something important might contract. There can be a sense of contraction in the body. I found that for me, there's a holding my breath as well. My toes sometimes are curled. And the question comes to me, what is skillful action in this situation? Coming into touch with my body while I'm late or in traffic is not pleasant, ultimately. I can sense, oh, this body is not happy. This body is suffering. And what could this body need? Could it need a deeper breath? Could it need a broader perspective? Oftentimes, no one's life is being threatened by my lateness. No huge consequence is going to come whether I'm late or not. And a settling in my body, a breath perhaps, an awareness of my back ribs. Sometimes there's an ability to forget that I'm late with this mindfulness of the body in those moments. Another example I thought of was coming into contact with the news cycle. Coming into contact with the realities of our world, perhaps our natural world, as we've been focusing on this evening. I've noticed that I have similar reactions when I'm reading news about wildfires or hurricanes, water shortages. Even as I'm listing these words, I wonder how the body feels. The idea of scarcity or a life that's unpredictable and uncertain. How can this element practice come in handy during these moments of our lives? How can coming in contact with the ground, these adjectives I offered earlier, solidity, stability, groundedness. Many of us, as we were listing our gateways to the body in the chat, mentioned the wisdom of our bodies. Our bodies are always in the present moment. And that brings me more to the spiritual application, which I've already been moving towards. If our bodies are our deepest source of wisdom, they are also our closest companion in life. The only thing with us from the first moment till the last. And as we come into deeper relationship, deeper connection with these bodies, through whatever means works for us, we are more and more aware of the Buddha's foundational teaching, which is suffering and the cessation of suffering. In my car, when I'm late, I really wish I wasn't, but I am late. And this body feels lateness. It feels difficulty and suffering. Coming into contact with this body and its suffering, instead of noticing the clock, wishing the light signal was different. Coming into contact with this body when I'm reading the news. Coming into the reality of this body, confronting a life that is difficult and challenging, and so often other than what I wish it were. Our bodies are our greatest ally in this journey we have towards realizing impermanence and the nature of suffering. Many of us listed aging and illness in our gateways to the body. This body will never lie about our aging process. I'm going to close tonight with one of my favorite metaphors from the Buddha's teachings. I think many of us will have already heard it. I wonder if we can connect once more with our bodies as I offer this metaphor that is really pointing to the preciousness of this human life, the preciousness of being born into a body, no matter the difficulty. So the Buddha asked us to imagine that there is a blind sea turtle. He's very old. He lives in the bottom of a vast, vast ocean. This blind sea turtle, according to some folks, only surfaces once every 100 years. Some folks say once every 1,000 years. And on the surface of this vast, vast ocean is a golden yolk. For my modern mind, I envision an inner tube that you would go rafting down the river on. And there's just one tube in this whole vast ocean. And what are the chances that this blind sea turtle would surface in the center of this golden yolk? Very, very slim, you might guess. The Buddha offered this metaphor as a way of communicating with us the rarity of a human life, the rarity of being born into this human form, into this body. There could have been so many other ways that we were born, if that's your belief structure, so many other beings. But we were born in this one, with this body. We get a whole lifetime to learn and come in different, deeper relationship with our bodies. There's a quote that I will end with as well by a 13th century Japanese Zen master. His name was Dogen. I've heard this repeated in a lot of Zen ceremonies. Dogen said, "Life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us can strive to awaken. Take heed, do not squander your life." Thank you all for your kind attention this evening. Really appreciated your presence, and you all stay very safe and well.